Welcome, everybody, to me doing something a little different, or at least something I haven't done in a while, because I have been strictly just a movie guy for months now. And while that is still pretty much my main focus, I also am a big fan of NBA basketball. And with the playoffs kicking off, I wanted to take just a little bit of time to talk about the NBA playoffs. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of the first round matchups, and I'm just going to talk through what I think is significant in each, then give my predictions for it. So if you're willing to come along with this journey for me, I appreciate it. And I'm just going to spend about 1 minute on each of the matchups. So here we go. Once again, we have the Boston Celtics versus the Miami Heat, the Zombie Heat, as Bill Simmons calls them. And I really thought once Jimmy Butler was out of the final playing game, the Chicago Bulls were going to end up winning it. But the Heat find a way, as they always do. And so, as nervous as it makes me that the Miami Heat are the Miami Heat, that Eric Spoelstra is still probably the best active coach in the NBA, I'm looking at this Heat roster that is just depleted. There's no Jimmy Butler. There's no Terry Rozier. They have other injuries, and the Boston Celtics have been a juggernaut. They're rolling through everybody in the East. They won the season series 3-0. I just think this is the year that the Celtics finally just put away the Heat and do it in convincing fashion with a sweep. So I'm predicting Celtics to win 4-0, and I know that's sort of famous last, words when you count out the Heat. So knocking on wood. Knicks versus Sixers. My big question for the Knicks is, can they sustain offense in the playoffs? I know it's a different team than last year, but last year their offense fell off a cliff in the playoffs. They averaged 116 points per game in the regular season, only 100 in the playoffs. Part of that is because they played really good defenses, but that's what happens in the playoffs. You play the best teams, and they tend to have the best defenses. For the Sixers, my big question is, who is going to be their third best player in this series? We all know that Embiid is their star, Maxey is his sidekick, but on any given night, it's uncertain what they're going to get from the rest of the cast. Kelly Oubre Jr. has probably been their most consistent third best player, but Hield can be that if he gets hot. But I'd really love to see more from Tobias Harris, who is their second highest paid player, and he needs to be more of a contributing factor in this series. I'm going to predict the Sixers win in 7 because I think Joel Embiid is going to be such a matchup nightmare for the Knicks. But if he's less than, say, 75% healthy, this could look really bad, and the Knicks could just roll them in about 5. Bucks versus the Pacers is going to be fascinating because the stylistic differences between the two teams. What's going to win out? Size or speed? In the regular season, the Pacers' speed won out 4 of the 5 times that these two teams face each other. So it really seems like a bad matchup for the Bucks. However, usually in the playoffs, I would say favor size. Look at what the Nuggets and the Lakers did last year, where the Lakers weren't a great team through most of the season, and then they were just beating teams up with their size and physicality in the playoffs. However, I still don't know if that's going to happen because I'm thinking the series might be more like last year's Heat and Bucks series, where Giannis was hurt, so he was out for half the series, and when he was playing, he wasn't 100%, and the Heat were a hot shooting team. This Bucks team just doesn't seem like they're going to have enough firepower without Giannis to keep up with this young Pacers team that's just going to get up and down the court. And so I'm predicting that the Pacers are going to win this series in 6 for the upset. The crazy thing about this series is just that either the Cavs or the Magic have to advance to the second round. These two teams are very evenly matched. They split the season series 2-2. They both have great defenses that rank near the top of the league and really mediocre offenses that ranked in the bottom half of the league. So you can expect a lot of low scoring games in this series. I'm going to give the edge to the Cavs because they have the most dynamic offensive player in the series in Donovan Mitchell, and maybe even the second most in Darius Garland. And it's going to be really curious to see how the young guys with no playoff experience do for the Magic. Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, can they be stars in their first playoff experience? Because usually teams have to take their lumps, a lot like the Cavs had to last year. So I'm calling it Cavs in 7 in a just grueling, grinded out series. Okay, so just to recap, what I had in the East was the number 1 seed Boston Celtics beating the Miami Heat in 4 games. I had the Cleveland Cavaliers beating the Orlando Magic in 7 games, which would give us a Boston Cleveland second round matchup. I have the Indiana Pacers beating the Milwaukee Bucks in 6. I have the Philadelphia 76ers beating the New York Knicks in 7. So that gives me actually 2 upsets in the bottom half of that bracket. I do think this bracket broke really well for the Celtics. Obviously, I don't love getting the Heat again, but without Jimmy Butler, it's about the best case scenario you could ask for with a Butlerless Heat in the first round and either the Mavs or the Cavs in the second round, avoiding Giannis, Embiid, the Knicks, all until possibly the conference finals. Man, this is a bummer because I think this could have been a really compelling series if Zion were healthy. I'm actually surprised the Pelicans got in without a healthy Zion, especially with Brandon Ingram still not being 100%. If there was ever a number 1 seed that people thought was vulnerable, it's this OKC team because it really seems like they overachieved. They're young, they're inexperienced, and it seemed like they could have gotten some matchups that people would have liked over them. If the Lakers had fallen to the 8 seed, I think a lot of people would have picked the Lakers. But this beat up, incomplete Pelicans team just won't have the firepower. I think if they can have any advantage, maybe Valanciunas is strong and hard to deal with inside, and the Thunder are really thin in their front court. But ultimately, they're just going to have way more firepower, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be able to find all sorts of mismatches that he can attack. And so I think the Thunder are going to roll in this one. I'm going to make it a prediction that the Thunder win in 5. Nuggets and Lakers, I actually feel bad for both these teams, and I never feel bad for the Lakers because I think both these teams would have rather played any of the other playoff teams. Even the Nuggets, I think, would have rather played the number 1 seed Thunder than these Lakers. That said, it does seem like the Nuggets have owned this matchup. They won last year's playoff series in a sweep, even though the games felt competitive. They won all 3 matchups they played this year. And it just basically comes down to the Lakers' advantage is that they're usually too big and physical for most teams and smart with LeBron James. The Nuggets are big. Jokic can handle their physicality. He's also a basketball genius. And so they just negate every advantage the Lakers have. So I think the Nuggets are going to continue to own this matchup. I think the Lakers still can take 1, maybe 2 off the Nuggets, but I'm going to predict that the Nuggets win in 5. Just like the 3-6 series in the East, the 3-6 series in the West is fascinating because the stylistic differences is defense versus offense. The Minnesota Timberwolves have the best defense in the league, and the Suns have 3 of the best offensive players in the league, especially from the mid range, which is exactly what you need if you want to beat the really big Minnesota Timberwolves defense. So the question is, can the Timberwolves create enough offense? Anthony Edwards is a star, and he could end up going off for like 40 points a game because the Suns don't have anybody that can guard him, but he needs support from Karl-Anthony Towns. Can Karl-Anthony Towns finally come through and be a proven playoff scorer? I don't trust it, so I am going to lean towards the Phoenix Suns, who have proven playoff scorers in Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and even Bradley Beal back when the Wizards used to be in the playoffs. So I'm going to predict that the Suns win this series in 6 because of their superior offensive firepower. This is probably the most compelling series throughout the first round because of these 2 teams having a history against each other in the playoffs and because of all the star power with Luka and Kyrie on one side and then Kawhi and Paul George and Harden on the other. The big question is just what the Clippers are going to look like. Kawhi's health is an unknown in this, and if he's not fully healthy, it's of course going to tip the scales towards Mavs' favor. But even if he is healthy, I just wonder, both these teams have had stretches where they looked really good in the season, but the Clippers feel kind of far removed from their stretch, and the Mavs are in it right now. They were the best team in the NBA in the last 15 games, and so the fact that they're firing on all cylinders makes me want to lean towards them. Luka will probably be the best player in the series. Good Kyrie, like where he's locked in and engaged, is incredible, and so I'm going to go with the Mavs winning this series in 6 because I just don't trust the Clippers. I don't trust Kawhi's health, and I think the Mavs are playing awesome right now. So, to recap my Western Conference predictions, I predicted that the Oklahoma City Thunder would beat the Pelicans in 5. I predicted the Dallas Mavericks to win in 6 over the Clippers. I predicted the Suns to also win in 6 over the Wolves. And I predicted the Nuggets to win in 5 over the Lakers. Looking at this bracket, the number one thing that jumps out to me is that, again, things really broke right for the number one seed. It was a big reward for the Thunder that they get to play a depleted Pelicans team in the first round and probably build some confidence as they're so new to this playoff picture. Also, a team that struggles with size, looking at this bracket, all the size ended up in the other side of the bracket. The Wolves, the Nuggets, the Lakers, they couldn't face any of those teams until the conference finals if they make it there, and they have to be feeling good about that.